My dad called me a burden and toasted my brother's success. I stayed silent for 7 years, until a secret child and a CNN breaking news changed everything. I came back to my hometown after 7 years with one small suitcase and a heart that felt too heavy for my chest. The bus dropped me near the old market, and for a moment I just stood there, breathing in the familiar air. It smelled the same: dust, fuel, and something sweet from the bakery across the street. Everything looked smaller than I remembered, or maybe I had just grown tired of this place in my mind. I had promised myself I would never return. Not after the night my father called me a burden. Not after he told me to leave and never look back. But life has a strange way of pushing you back to the places that hurt you most. My father had sent the invitation himself. A simple message. Family dinner. Your brother's promotion. Be there. No warmth. No apology. Just an order. I told myself I would go for one reason only: to prove that I was no longer the weak man he remembered. Still, as I walked toward the house I grew up in, my hands felt cold. The gate creaked when I pushed it open, and that sound alone pulled memories from deep inside me. Shouting, silence, slammed doors. The house was bright inside. Too bright. Laughter spilled out before I even stepped in. My brother's laugh stood out, loud and confident, just like always. He was sitting at the head of the table, wearing an expensive suit, his watch catching the light every time he moved his hand. My father sat beside him, proud and smiling in a way I had never seen directed at me. When I entered, the room went quiet for a second. Not surprise, just discomfort. My mother gave me a short nod. My brother smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. Dinner passed slowly. Plates clinked. Glasses filled and emptied. I barely tasted the food. I kept my eyes on my plate, like I used to do as a child, hoping to avoid my father's stare. Then it happened. My father stood up, lifting his glass high. "To my successful son," he said loudly, looking at my brother. Applause followed. Chairs scraped. Smiles widened. My father's eyes shifted toward me. "And to those," he added, his voice sharp, "who don't become a burden again." Laughter broke out. Not kind laughter. The kind that cuts. Something inside me tightened. My chest felt hot, my throat dry. I wanted to say something. Anything. But I didn't. I stayed silent. I had learned long ago that words didn't change his mind. Silence was safer. After dinner, I didn't stay. No goodbyes. No fights. I walked out into the night, the sound of their voices fading behind me. The sky was dark, the air heavy. I sat in my car for a long time before turning the key. I didn't know where I was going. I only knew I couldn't stay there. The road out of town was almost empty. Streetlights passed by like slow thoughts. My mind drifted back 7 years, to the last time I had driven this road. Back then, I was angry and broken. Tonight, I felt tired. Tired of carrying shame that wasn't mine. Without planning it, I turned onto the dirt road leading to the farm. Her farm. The tires crunched against gravel, and dust rose behind me. The moon was low, casting pale light over the fields. The old fence leaned the same way it always had, like it was too tired to stand straight. One light glowed inside the house. I stopped the car and just sat there. "Don't do this," I told myself. "You should leave." But my feet moved anyway. Each step toward the house felt heavy. My heart beat faster with every breath. I hadn't seen her since the day she disappeared. No goodbye. No message. Just gone. And I had spent years wondering why. I raised my hand and knocked. The door opened slowly. Sarah stood there. For a second, neither of us spoke. She looked older, but not in a bad way. Her hair was pulled back loosely, a few strands falling around her face. Her eyes were the same, soft but guarded. When she saw me, her face lost all color. "You," she whispered. "I didn't expect you," she said, almost to herself. "Neither did I replied. The words felt weak, but they were true. She stepped aside, letting me in. The house smelled like wood and something warm, like soup. It felt quiet, peaceful. Too peaceful for the storm inside me. "I was just passing through," I said, though we both knew it was a lie. She nodded slowly. "It's been a long time." 7 years, I said. She looked away. We stood there awkwardly, Two people tied by a past neither of us had escaped. I noticed small things: the worn floor, the framed photo turned face down on the shelf, the way her hands shook slightly when she folded them together. "I should go," I said, even though I didn't move. She hesitated, then said softly, "You can stay for a moment." We stepped outside onto the wooden porch. The night air was cool. Crickets sang in the fields. For a while, we just listened. "I came back for my family," I said finally. She let out a small, sad breath. "I'm sorry," she said. "About everything." I looked at her, searching her face for answers. "Why did you leave?" I asked quietly. She didn't respond. Her eyes filled, but no tears fell. "I thought you hated me," I added. She shook her head slowly. "Never that." The silence stretched between us, thick and painful. I felt it then, something unfinished, something buried. This meeting wasn't just a coincidence. It was a door opening after years of being locked. As I stood there under the dark sky, I didn't know yet that this night would change everything. I only knew one thing. My past had followed me home. We sat on the wooden steps outside the farm, the night heavy around us. The air smelled of wet earth, pine, and the faint scent of old wood from the house behind us. Somewhere in the distance, a dog barked, and the wind whispered through the trees. Everything felt familiar, yet nothing was the same. "I shouldn't have come back," Sarah said, her voice soft, almost breaking. She pulled her knees close, wrapping her arms around them. The movement made me think of how small she once seemed, though I knew she wasn't small at all, never had been. "Neither should I," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. But I felt raw, like a wound reopening. 7 years I've carried that night with me. She flinched slightly. "I know," she whispered. For a moment, neither of us spoke. The silence stretched, heavy, full of things neither of us wanted to say. I watched her hands. They trembled just a little, and I wondered if she was as scared as I was. "You left," I said finally, my voice low. 7 years ago, you left without a word." She looked down at her feet, shuffling them on the wooden step. "I was told it was better this way." "Better by who?" I asked sharply, though I tried to keep it calm. My chest felt tight, my throat dry. She didn't answer. I could see it in her eyes. She was hiding something. Something I needed to know. "I trusted you," I said, my voice breaking slightly. "I trusted you, and you vanished." I didn't have a choice," she said finally, her lips trembling. "I tried to fight it, but it wasn't mine to fight." Her words made my stomach twist. I wanted to ask more, but a part of me already guessed the truth. Something had happened, something that involved more than just us. I leaned back against the railing, looking up at the stars. "Do you know what it's like," I said, "to leave your home, to lose your family, to have the person you love disappear and never explain why?" She swallowed hard. "I do," she whispered. The wind shifted, and the sound of the fields around us made the night feel alive. A lone owl called out, and I shivered. "Why didn't you tell me?" I asked softly. "Why not just say something?" "I was protecting someone," she said, almost too quietly. Her eyes flicked toward the house behind her. "Someone you wouldn't understand yet." My heart skipped. "Who?" She shook her head, biting her lip. "Not tonight. Not like this." I wanted to push, to demand answers, but something in her voice stopped me. I could see the fear, the guilt, the pain she carried. It mirrored my own. I closed my eyes, letting the memories wash over me. 7 years ago, my life had shattered in a week. My father called me useless. My brother took over the company I had worked at for years. I felt like I had no place, no value. And Sarah had been my only refuge, the only person who saw me for me. And then she was gone. Just gone. "I waited," I said, my voice shaking. "I waited for a call, a letter, anything. Nothing." "I know," she said again, her voice barely audible. "I know you did. And I'm sorry. Every day, I wished I could tell you. I wished I could explain." I opened my eyes and looked at her. She looked smaller than I remembered, yet stronger. The way she held herself, the tension in her shoulders, it was clear she had fought battles I couldn't imagine. I don't understand, I said finally. Why? Why did you disappear? I had no choice, she repeated. Your father, he made sure I left. He said it was for the best. That you would ruin everything. The words hit me like a punch to the gut. My father. Always controlling, always making sure everyone bowed to him. I wanted to shout, to run back to that house and confront him, but the night held me still. From inside the house, I heard a sound that made me freeze. A small laugh. Soft. Innocent. I turned to Sarah. Her eyes widened, and she stepped back quickly. It's nothing. Just the radio, she said, too quickly. I didn't believe her. There was fear in her eyes now, a sharp, panicked flicker that made my heart beat faster. I see it, I said quietly. You're hiding something. She looked down, trembling. Her hands fidgeted with the edge of her sleeve. I was trying to protect you, she said, voice barely above a whisper. Protect me from what? I pressed. She took a shaky breath and looked at me, her eyes glistening in the moonlight. From your father. From what he would do. I couldn't let you see it. Not then. Not ever. The wind rustled through the trees, and I could hear the faint hum of the night insects. Every sound around us seemed amplified. The creak of the porch, the distant dog bark, the whisper of the wind. I stayed silent, letting her words sink in. My mind raced with questions. My chest burned with anger and confusion. I wanted answers. I wanted to understand why my life had been turned upside down. Why didn't you ever tell me? I asked again, softer this time. Even now, why? She shook her head. I can't. Not yet. It's too dangerous. Too complicated. I need to make sure it's safe first. Her hesitation made my stomach twist. I didn't like secrets, never had. But I saw the truth in her eyes. She wasn't lying. She was scared, and maybe she always had been. I looked out into the darkness, past the farm, past the fields. The night felt endless. The silence pressed down on us, heavy and suffocating. And yet, there was something in the air, something that whispered that everything was about to change. You're hiding something, I said again, more firmly this time. I know it. She didn't respond immediately. Her eyes fell to her lap, and her fingers twisted nervously. I was trying to protect someone, she whispered finally. Someone. I repeated, my heart pounding. She didn't answer, but I saw it in her eyes. The fear, the guilt, the unspoken truth. Something important. Something that had kept her away all these years. I leaned back on the step, my hands gripping the wood. The night felt alive, watching us, waiting. And I realized then that whatever she was hiding, whatever had kept us apart, it was bigger than both of us. I didn't know the full story yet, but I knew one thing. I wasn't leaving until I did. And I had a feeling that the truth, when it came, would change everything. The night air pressed against us, heavy with tension. I felt my heart hammering in my chest as I looked at Sarah. She was trembling, her face pale in the moonlight. There was something she hadn't told me, something that had kept her away all these years. And then I heard it. A soft shuffle from inside the house. A sound so small it could have been anything, but my instinct screamed it wasn't. Who's there? I asked, my voice low, steady, though my body was tense like a wire pulled tight. Sarah's eyes darted toward the door. She froze, as if frozen by fear itself. It's nothing, she whispered, too fast. Just the radio. But I knew it wasn't the radio. A child's laugh, clear and innocent, floated from inside. A small, curious laugh that tugged at something deep inside me. My chest tightened, my stomach flipped. Sarah's eyes filled with tears. She turned away, biting her lip, her hands trembling. I can't. I wanted to protect you, she said, her voice barely audible. I tried. I really did. I didn't speak. I only waited. My heart had already figured it out. The door opened behind her. A small boy appeared, stepping slowly into the porch light. He froze when he saw me, and then his big eyes, my eyes, locked onto mine. Dark hair falling across his forehead, soft features that mirrored my own. My heart stopped. Yours, Sarah said, her voice breaking. "Your father, he made me leave. He said you'd ruined the family name. He told me to disappear, to hide him. I had no choice." I couldn't speak. My chest burned. My legs felt weak. 7 years of rage, grief, confusion, and pain, all of it compressed into this moment. The boy stepped closer, and I instinctively bent down, reaching out. He hesitated, then allowed me to hold him. My arms, once empty for so long, finally had something to hold. A part of me that was mine, that my father had tried to erase. Sarah stepped back, tears rolling down her cheeks. "I'm so sorry," she whispered. I couldn't answer. My mind was spinning. Anger, relief, love, heartbreak, all colliding. The boy looked up at me, wide-eyed, and smiled a little, and in that smile, I saw a future I had never thought I would have. But then, the sound of the television from inside the house made my blood run cold. Breaking news on CNN. I turned toward the flickering light through the window. The screen was showing my father's company. Fraud, embezzlement, lies exposed. My brother, the golden child of the family, was being escorted by police. The headline scrolled across the screen: "Family empire crumbles as scandal unfolds." My father's smug face, his laughter from the dinner table still echoing in my ears, was replaced by footage of handcuffs, news anchors reporting every detail. I felt a cold satisfaction settle over me, but it was quiet, almost invisible. I didn't cheer. I didn't smile. I just held my son tighter. The world had shifted in a single moment. The man who had called me a burden, who had toasted my brother while ignoring my existence, was finally facing the truth. Justice wasn't loud. It was subtle, and it was perfect. Sarah watched me, her hands trembling. He's yours," she said again. "You don't have to forgive me. I only did what I could." I shook my head. Forgiveness wasn't mine yet. Right now, it was about the boy, about holding him and knowing that my blood, my love, and my care would fill the void that my father and my family had tried to leave empty. I looked down at him, tracing the curve of his cheek with my fingers. "I'm here now," I whispered. "I'm not going anywhere." He giggled softly, and I laughed, a sound I hadn't made in years. It was fragile, cautious, but real. Sarah leaned against the railing, exhausted. "I feared you'd hate me," she said. "I thought you'd never forgive me for leaving, for keeping him away from you." I didn't answer immediately. I thought of the years I had spent angry, lonely, broken. I thought of the dinners, the silence, the taunts, and the cold, calculating words my father had thrown at me. And now, they were powerless. "I'm not angry at you," I said finally. "Not anymore. I'm glad you kept him safe." Her shoulders sagged with relief. "Thank you," she whispered. We sat in silence for a few moments, listening to the night, the crickets, the wind through the trees. Somewhere in the distance, a lone dog barked. I looked back toward the house, toward the world my father had tried to control. The TV flickered through the window again. My father's empire crumbling, my brother's lies exposed. And for a brief moment, I felt the weight of 7 years lift from my shoulders. Not entirely. There would always be scars. There would always be memories of being called a burden, of being ignored, of being hurt. But right now, I had something stronger. I had my son. I had truth. And I had justice. The boy yawned and nestled closer to me. I held him tightly, feeling the small, steady heartbeat against my chest. It was real. It was mine. Sarah finally turned to me, her eyes soft. "He needs you," she said. "He needs a father." "I know," I said. And for the first time in years, I felt a calm certainty. My father's words, my brother's laughter, the pain I had carried, it couldn't touch me here. It had no power. I stood slowly, lifting the boy in my arms. "Let's go," I said. "We'll figure this out. Together." Sarah nodded, tears streaming down her face, a faint smile breaking through. "Be careful," she whispered. The world is still theirs." "I'll be careful," I said. As we walked down the porch steps, the moonlight illuminating our path, I glanced back once at the house. Inside, my father and brother were trapped in the chaos they had created. Their empire, built on lies and cruelty, was falling apart. And I had my son. I had the truth. The wind blew softly across the fields. The boy in my arms yawned again, his small hand brushing mine. I kissed the top of his head and whispered, "You're safe now. You're mine." And for the first time in 7 years, I felt the word freedom brush against my soul. The night was quiet again, but different this time. It held promise, possibility, and the subtle, undeniable power of truth. I didn't look back. I didn't need to. I only looked forward, to the boy in my arms, to the life we would build, to the justice that had quietly, perfectly, arrived. And in that moment, I realized something powerful. Sometimes, the best revenge isn't a shout, a fight, or a scene. Sometimes, the best revenge is living, thriving, and letting the truth destroy the walls your enemies built around themselves. I held my son closer, feeling his tiny heartbeat against mine. And I whispered, almost to myself, "Welcome to the world, my son. Welcome home."